Around the middle of the 1800s, various portals to the other fantasy world, opened up in a few spots on our world. There were a few on the United States, but they weren't discovered early on. But the one that was discovered was inside what's now the Czech Republic, Czechia. And at this time, the Czech homelands were ruled by the Austrian Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So the Czech scientists who discovered this doorway, quickly decided, wow, we do not like being ruled by the Austrians. And if we tell the government authorities what we discovered, it's theirs, not ours anymore. We're not going to have access to it. So it became this secret, and they began exploring it and then colonizing it. And then they invited friends who were Czech American and then eventually African American to also come along, as long as they kept the secret, because if the United States government found out, they would inform the Austrian government perhaps, and that caused trouble for the Czechs. Or when they invited the African American scientists in the United States, they realized, oh, wow, look at this whole land here where we don't have to face segregation and the horrors of, like
slavery
lynching.
still.
Yeah, slavery and lynching, yeah. Well, it was post-Civil War, I think, by the time that the African American scientists got involved. But yeah, but still, it was this place where they could just go and be free. And so once again, they didn't tell the government. And then the doorways just suddenly closed a little before World War I. And people couldn't go back and forth anymore. And on the other world, Earth just became this legend of where they'd come from generations ago.
And so, why did you choose the Czech Republic, or Bohemia, or whatever it was called in the mid 1800s for the
Genesis? The Austrians definitely called it Bohemia. So yeah, you got that right. I chose it mainly as an aesthetic decision, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to call the different lands and cities and monsters and all that. And I grew up inside of a subdivision outside South Bend, Indiana, called Knollwood, where we had streets named with names like Lincroft and Foxcross and things like that. So when I watch a TV show like Game of Thrones, and everything has like names like Black Castle, and things like that, I was just like, oh, this sounds like the streets I grew up on. This sounds like the most boring fantasy in the world in the possible to me. I do not want to. If I make a fantasy world, it's not going to have names like that. And then there's other options like anything Scandinavian or German sounds like cheesy heavy metal bands to me, or IKEA furniture. So I didn't want to go for that option. Latin sounds pretentious and didn't make sense for the story. I didn't want to have it be an ancient Roman thing like that. Japanese, again, it sounds way too specific or things like that. And everything kind of came together where I liked how Czech words looked, even though I didn't know how to pronounce them.
It seemed almost as alien as possible while still using the Roman alphabet.
Yeah, and it was just fun. It was just, the names were just fun. And I began making up, using a bad, not bad, but a Czech English dictionary to just make up fantasy names, placeholder fantasy names that I thought could work. And before publication, I realized, okay, these are really bad. Someday someone from who speaks Czech or grew up Czech is going to read these and just be really angry with me if I keep these placeholder names. So I worked with a professor of Slavic languages at the University of Chicago, whom I still haven't met yet, named Malin Sternstein. And she took my placeholder names and then made very, very clever Czech language names, often kind of mashups and I can't remember the name for
portmanteaus.
Portmanteau words and stuff like that for all the things I'd made up.